Be they the bane of the bushes or the symbol of sitcom success, The Simpsons is the longest running animated sitcom on air. What originated as a short on the Tracy Ullman Show has ingrained itself into the very fabric of culture itself. With 33 years of cultural critique under their belts, the writers and animators have hidden their fair share of references and gags in plain sight. And for the more risque subject matters, a level of plausible deniability is required. While we will try to keep things PG enough for Maggie, if you are too young to watch Itchy and Scratchy, you may want to skip this one. Starting off rather tame, in Lisa's Substitute, we are introduced to the one-off character Mr. Bergstrom, an amazing teacher with an aptitude for academic performance. Midway through the episode, while we follow Lisa's descent into admiration, we peer into the private lives of Springfield Elementary's teachers. Miss Krabappel sitting on a desk, flirting with the new substitute, but the lessons she wants to be taught are far less than school-friendly. Her dress revealing the sultry teacher's legs and the blatant reference to The Graduate would make even Reverend Lovejoy hot under the collar. And before we move on, Dustin Hoffman went by a pseudonym in this episode, despite reciting arguably his most famous line almost word for word. Sideshow Bob's first victim was his longtime partner, Krusty the Clown. And if he had it his way, he'd take Bart out as well. In Season 3, Episode 21, his target is that of Aunt Selma. Now, murderous plots aside, did you happen to hear that joke that Krusty was saying? The joke should go like this.
Hey, this guy walks into a bar and takes out a tiny piano and a 12-inch pianist.
Krusty stops himself right there, proclaiming that he just can't tell that joke. If you didn't get the picture, he would have gone on to tell a story of magic genies and misheard wishes. A classic dirty joke to share amongst your friends, but maybe not one for the general audience. But who needs a 12-inch pianist anyway, you know? Book clubs all over would be jumping for joy over this next one. What better hiding spot for toxic stoic ideas than the walls of a preschool? In Season 4, Episode 2, we are introduced to Ayn Rand's School for Tots, a horrible place where imagination is useless and help is futile. If you haven't guessed, this entire place is a joke on Ayn Rand and her philosophy of objectivism, which for the shorthand can be described as a moral stoicism that rejects determinism. For these jokes, it specifically finds the idea of imagination and subjective thought as inherently useless without the grounding of cognition. So the letter A, for example, is the letter A and nothing else. Where to begin? This episode is the raunchiest yet seen on television. Who could forget Marge's opening innuendo of "It's cold outside," or Bart's outrageous retort of "typewriter with a handgun"? Season 4, Episode 3 is filled to the brim with green meadows. If you haven't guessed, that's complete nonsense. Not to suggest that children don't like the surreal. The popularity of the steamed hams meme is nothing but an example of the surreal, but it takes a keen eye to understand a surreal reference in the background of all things. Well, in Season 4, Episode 3, we get just that. No, soap radio. A joke that's funny because there is no connection to the punchline. The listener is either in on the joke or they are not, but you cannot be an outsider and understand. Homer's shower radio is a cheeky nod to these practical jokes. A blink and you'll miss it, surreal comedy. I Love Lisa is the 15th episode of the 4th season. In it, Lisa has to deal with the ongoing affections from Ralph Wiggum. A lesson that, we should all learn, but that's not what we're here for today. No, we are here for Bart's remarks to his sister. When invited to Krusty's show, Lisa is hesitant because she obviously does not like Ralph romantically. Bart offers to take her place and will go to many lengths to keep the jig up. How far? In his own words, we do not want to know. From kissing to more, this is quite the promise, given that Bart has his own rocky relationship with Ralph. In the very next episode, we have the Duffless, in which Lisa tries to prove that Bart is dumber than a hamster. A rather innocent premise for a B story, but like many details in the beloved show, there lies a more adult reference under the surface. Lisa uses cupcakes to shock Bart. Despite the negative stimuli, he will still attempt to grab them, in a way disproving Pavlov, but the scene is eerily similar to the one in Clockwork Orange. You know the one, where Alex reaches for a pair of cupcakes himself? Be you a frog or a mouse, food and sex are supposed to feel good, yet neither Bart nor Alex can enjoy them. Do we have any Danny DeVito fans in the audience? Of course, I'm joking. It would be near sacrilegious not to cherish this larger-than-life figure. Well, Season 4, Episode 18 gives us an homage to that hit movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. See, when Homer refuses the duff, Barney smothers him with a pillow, then escapes through the glass window. Almost shot for shot, ripped from the ending of the aforementioned movie. Jack Nicholson is left almost brain dead after a horrific lobotomy and is smothered to death by, you guessed it, a pillow. An extremely dark and adult subject for such a seemingly innocent throwaway gag. Marge and Chains is the Simpsons answer to court dramas. During Apu's cross-examination, he says he doesn't forget anything, and that the 4,000 digit of pi is a 1. This joke flies right over us unless you're more mathematically inclined. Especially because for such a small line, the writers had to contact NASA themselves to make sure that, well, the joke was accurate. See, there was no encyclopedia for the digits of pi yet, and measuring the number is notoriously difficult. And I think that just enhances the humor of the joke. The idea that it took real time and effort to pass accurate information in what really was a throwaway line is kind of mind-blowing. Plus, it will go over even the quickest mathematician's head at first viewing. This next one is sewn all over culture, from Rocky Horror to Do the Right Thing. In Cape Fear, Sideshow Bob has the words love and hat on the knuckles of his fingers, a play on the popular Love and Hate. But due to the main cast only having 4 fingers, the writer had to get creative. And I can hear you asking, well, how is this an adult joke? Well, this tattoo dates all the way back to 1955. The movie The Night of the Hunter stars a not-so-loving priest with an intense hatred for the widowers that he seduces. In said film, Harry Powell, the preacher, uses the tattoos to illustrate the struggles between good and evil. If you haven't seen this thriller, oh yeah, I highly suggest it. Highbrow comedy aside, let's get higher on the list, huh? Season 8, Episode 6 introduced us to the Stoner's Pot Palace, a pottery lover's haven. Otto, the bus driver, however, was hoping for a more botanical take on the word's double meaning. This fan-favorite shop even found itself in The Simpsons' Tapped Out. This isn't the last mistaken drugstore, either, as the same joke is pulled on poor Otto in Season 23 with the needle exchange. A great place to get all the sewing equipment you may need, but don't feel too bad for the lovable bus driver with the legalization of certain substances and the tolerance for those enthusiasts being more common. Hooray! You know, he may soon find what he's looking for. A whole entire episode is dedicated to a premise taken from a very not-so-family-friendly movie, Pulp Fiction. 22 short films about Springfield have vignettes from the various residents of the beloved town, one of which is now the famous steamed hams. But scenes in the Krusty Burger and Wiggum gagged and tied to a chair are all inspired from a much more gruesome one in Pulp Fiction. But this is far from the last time the cast and crew poke a little fun at the cult classic, as in 2013 they have an episode entitled Pulpit Friction, an obvious play on the title as well as the plot of the episode. So if you checked out at the last math reference, you may want to get some coffee for this next one. The season is number 10, it's the second episode, and in it, The Simpsons seemingly disproved a long-lasting belief that x to the nth power plus y to the nth power equals z to the nth power was unsolvable. Known as Fermat's last theorem, it postulates that there is no combination of whole 4-digit numbers one can substitute for x, y, and z that will balance the equation, so long as n is greater than 2. However, if you look at the math on the blackboard of equations, you'll see 3987 to the 12th power plus 4665 to the 12th power equals 4472 to the 12th power, and it works. Sort of. See, the left side is actually Adam's whisper smaller than the right. See, close but no cigar. Earth, air, water, fire. The four elements lived in harmony on a poster in a hidden room in Springfield Elementary. Fans of the Avatar show rejoice in the celebration of its main theme. The 21st episode of the 22nd season gives us a little taste of the love Avatar has gained behind the scenes.
When you have gone on for 30 seasons and are one of the biggest shows on the planet, it's safe to say that you can basically do whatever you want. Make an eerie prediction for the future, sure. Constantly insult the network you're on, of course. Have a crossover episode with other iconic TV shows, absolutely.
Dude, The Simpsons done everything already. Who cares?
And that's what we are going to take a look at today with 10 different times The Simpsons crossed over with other iconic TV shows. Let's dive in.
Okay, that doesn't sound super exciting.
Let's start off with a show in the Groening universe, Futurama. While Futurama didn't quite hit the heights of The Simpsons, the cult classic comedy, which was also created by Matt Groening, has a huge fan base in its own right, with the show being equally hilarious and emotional. No one can tell me they didn't tear up over Fry's dog. I won't believe you. Also, I'm sorry I brought that up. Seeing as how both shows are under Groening's umbrella, it is unsurprising to see the two share the screen. In the episode Simpsorama, we see the Planet Express crew make their way to 742 Evergreen Terrace in order to prevent a future where creatures have evolved from the DNA of America's bad boy Bart Simpson. However, in an episode which should have been epic, the crossover is arguably pretty underwhelming. Yes, there are some pretty good interactions between Bender and Homer. I mean, how could there not be? Bender is basically a robot Homer. But overall, the dynamics between the two shows is very rarely seen, and the comedy from both falls flat. But this video isn't a review, just a rant, a screen rant. Maybe next, though, they will do a crossover with another Groening show, Disenchantment. Although, I won't hold my breath. Like Futurama, this next crossover is also very unsurprising, down to the fact that the shows are so often compared with one another. We are, of course, talking about another crude and controversial animated show centering around a dysfunctional family and their wacky adventures and surreal cutaway gags. Family Guy. In the episode The Simpsons Guy, which was the first episode of season 13 of Family Guy, we see the Griffin family leaving Quahog after angering the locals, just like Homer when he started slapping people with gloves and challenging them to a duel. The Griffins then end up having their car stolen before they end up in Springfield, where they run into, you guessed it, Moe. Just kidding, it's The Simpsons, of course. While the action may be set in Springfield, this episode is most definitely a Family Guy outing, and the differences between the two shows quickly become more apparent rather than the similarities. And I still can't unsee that sexy car wash, no matter how hard I try. Well. The Simpsons are well known for their parodies, but these parodies get taken to another meta level in a crossover episode. Take, for example, their 24 parody. In the episode 24 Minutes, Lisa and Bart race against time to stop a stink bomb going off at the Springfield Elementary bake sale. Along the way, they encounter none other than Jack Bauer himself, voiced by Kiefer Sutherland, and Chloe O'Brien, voiced by Lynn Ricecub, with both being some of the greatest Simpsons cameos of all time, along with Gary Coleman.
Isn't it possible for an evil company to make people happy?
In terms of parody, it is arguably one of the show's strongest, and let's face it, everyone loves a Simpsons doing a thriller episode over a mundane event. Plus, it's Kiefer Sutherland in The Simpsons. What's not to love? Now, I think it's safe to say that everyone gets excited in a Mr. Burns episode, or at least when he's integral to the plot, and he is very much integral to the plot of The Simpsons crossover episode with The X-Files. We are, of course, talking about the Season 8 episode, The Springfield Files, where Homer encounters an extraterrestrial in the woods after getting drunk on imported Duff beers. At first, Homer's warnings go unnoticed, and eventually people start to take notice, and people flock to see the so-called alien that offers them love. It is at that point that the FBI decided to get involved, and who else should appear but the deadpan protagonists of The X-Files. Agents Mulder and Scully voiced by the characters' actors David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson. The episode is not just arguably the greatest crossover episode on this list, but one of the show's strongest episodes with some great sight gags. Has Mo carrying a whale, and a cameo by the one and only Leonard Nimoy, and of course, the reveal that Mr. Burns was the alien all along. Now, this entry is definitely arguable in terms of iconic, but it is still an important one by any means, as it led us to some fan-favorite jokes, such as Boo Earns.
Are they booing me?
No, they're saying Boo Earns.
We are talking about the crossover episode with The Critic. If you are not familiar with The Critic, it was a show starring Jon Lovitz as Jay Sherman, who was, as you probably guessed, a film critic. But the show was canceled after 2 seasons before having a brief revival on the web. Do people still call it the web?
Don't push your luck! Don't push your luck!
I'm old. Sherman makes an appearance in The Simpsons in the episode A Star is Burns, with Sherman brought in to judge the Springfield Film Festival. While some of the jokes are a little ham-fisted, in true Simpsons style, they constantly make nods to the fact that they are doing a crossover episode. And some of the films the Springfielders come up with are absolute gold. Who could not love Barney Gumbel's avant-garde classic, Pocahontas, or Hans Moleman's social satirical flick, Football in the Groin?
This contest is over. Give that man the $10,000.
This next one is admittedly more of a cameo than a crossover, but seeing as they are not animated in The Simpsons form, but in their own traditional format and voiced by the original actors, it's technically a crossover, as well as a nod to another Fox show. In the Season 9 episode Bart Star, Homer ends up coaching Bart's Pee-wee football team. In a quick cameo, who else should be watching the game but the Hill family from the long-lived show King of the Hill? It's a quick and subtle crossover, but still hilarious nonetheless, with the super meta line,
"We drove 2,000 miles for this?"
Arguably, a longer crossover could have also led to some equally funny moments, but a quick throwaway gag also works like a charm. Moving away from the scripted TV series crossovers and onto the world of reality TV. In the episode Judge Me Tender, Mo proves himself to be good at judging talent and therefore gets invited to be a judge on the show American Idol. However, not everything goes simply for our resident barkeep, as he develops a fierce feud with his co-judge Simon Cowell. In terms of parody, it is arguably pretty soft for The Simpsons, as they go fairly easy on the show and the episode doesn't feel particularly Simpson-y. Furthermore, what makes this arguably more disappointing is the fact that this isn't the greatest American Idol crossover, with their appearance on Shrek 2 being brilliant and adored by fans. Now again, we are being a little bit literal with the word iconic, but this is another TV series that had a full-on crossover episode in The Simpsons. In the episode The Computer Wore Menace Shoes, Homer buys a computer and makes his own fake news site before he becomes a target of a mysterious organization who then imprisons him and keeps him captive on a strange island. That's where he encounters a man named Number 6, voiced by Patrick McGoohan, the lead character of the 60s British sci-fi series The Prisoner. McGoohan, who is not only the star of the series but the co-creator, only has a fleeting cameo appearance, but the episode has constant references to the show and walks the line between parody and crossover. It is definitely the strangest crossover here, and while you would expect a crossover with Futurama or Family Guy, you wouldn't really expect a British TV show from the 60s. Still though, it kinda works. The Simpsons have had no issue poking fun at their old owners Fox in the past, constantly making satirical jokes at the network's expense. But the show went even further than usual in this crossover episode, where they seemingly attacked Rupert Murdoch's plans to eliminate public broadcasting. In the episode Missionary Impossible, the show brings in a whole load of PBS cameos, including the Teletubbies, Mr. Rogers, Betty White, and even the Sesame Street crew. The episode is a surprisingly pleasant tribute to PBS, although there is something strangely terrifying about the line,
Elmo knows where you live!
Now this last one is a little bit of a cheat, as it's not a Simpsons episode and I don't think any of the people behind The Simpsons were actually involved in it, but Ryan George told me to get this video to 10 minutes or he won't do a pitch meeting of my favorite film. So I am going to mention the 7th episode of South Park Season 6, The Simpsons Already Did It.
Okay.
Being around for 30 seasons, The Simpsons have basically done everything to the detriment of every other animated comedy around. South Park pokes fun at this in the episode as Butters devises a number of schemes to take over the world, only to find out that The Simpsons already did it.
Simpsons did it.
These plans include Mr. Burns' plot to block out the sun, and an idea that mirrors Bart cutting off the head of Jebediah Springfield's statue. Eventually, though, the South Park crew accept the fact that the Simpsons have done every idea imaginable and realize that worrying about it is completely pointless. I was going to make a joke about how the Simpsons are basically the kings of TV, but they've probably already done it.
Roll it again. Better from the chimney than the furnace, am I right?
Welcome back to our exploration of The Simpsons, where today on ScreenRant, we delve into the season 35 finale, a pivotal episode that finally addresses a long-standing mystery surrounding one of television's beloved characters, Homer Simpson. For over 3 decades, Homer has evolved from a somewhat cynical and smarter character through the lovable, dumb figure we know today. This transformation has sparked endless discussions among fans and critics alike.
All right, pal. Should we call it a tie?
But in the latest season, The Simpsons tackles this head-on, providing a narrative that not only entertains, but also offers a deeper understanding of Homer's intellectual journey. In the episode titled Bart's Brain, a mix-up involving a human brain and a jar of pickled eggs leads to a repeating conversation with Moe, who suggests that Homer's declining intelligence over the years could be attributed to his lifestyle choices, namely his drinking habits and exposure to radiation at the nuclear power plant.
The usual, sir?
Thank you, Lloyd.
I hear radiation poisoning is a painless way to go.
This explanation ties back to the show's earlier seasons, where Homer's intelligence looks noticeably sharper. This season cleverly addresses the concept of flanderization, where a character's defining traits are exaggerated to the point of overshadowing their original complexity. Homer Simpson, once a multifaceted character, had become increasingly defined by his lack of intelligence, a shift that mirrored the transformation seen in his neighbor, Ned Flanders. Season 35 not only acknowledges these changes, but also revisits the essence of Homer's character. Episodes like The Night of the Living Wage and It's a Blunderful Life plays on Homer's naivety, but also highlights his inherent decency, reminding us why Homer Simpson remains a central figure in the landscape of television characters. As we reflect on this season, it's clear that The Simpsons continues to engage with its history and its characters in a way that resonates with long-time viewers and new fans alike. Join us next time as we continue to explore the dynamic world of The Simpsons, where comedy and character study intersect, creating a rich tapestry of storytelling that keeps us coming back for more.
The Simpsons have been referencing Disney far before they were just another tentacle in old Walt's worldwide entertainment conglomerate. And yes, The Simpsons predicted Fox's sale to Disney decades before it actually happened. There's just a clip for everything, isn't there? So join us on a hyperspeed journey through Simpsons lore as we uncover 23 Disney references you missed in The Simpsons. And we're looking for deep cuts here, okay? The hidden times America's favorite family poke fun at the House of Mouse. I challenge you to find more interesting references. I challenge you! God, I need more coffee. Hey, speaking of uncontrollable rage, this season 13 episode sees Homer get so mad that he resembles Marvel and Disney's own Incredible Hulk, albeit with some help from some green paint. What you might have missed is Bart's nod to a long-time mystery to Hulk fans: how he keeps his pants on. We don't know. Speaking of Disney's Jolly Green Giant, nope, not that one, sorry. In this episode, Springfield's favorite comic book guy faints into a huge pile of foam Hulk hands, a toy you might remember from being in every toy store since the mid-2000s. The hands became something of a phenomenon, popping up several times in the show, usually in or around the Android's Dungeon comic shop. Unfortunately though, foam fists don't actually make you strong.
I know.
friends make you strong. I watch the same musical you do.
One Marvel strongman wasn't enough for Matt Groening's creative crew in this St. Patrick's Day episode, when a brawl between green-clad Irish Catholics and orange-wearing Irish Protestants brought out two same-colored brutes, the Incredible Hulk and Fantastic Four's The Thing. This, of course, isn't just calling out two random comic characters, but a nod to Bruce Banner and Ben Grimm's alter ego's long history of comic book battles. Okay, they fought a lot. Now, let's move on to references to another Disney heavy hitter, Mary Poppins.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
Sherry Bobbins, the Simpsons version, is an obvious reference, but a fun sub-reference is a booze hound named Barney, a song the nanny sings to the kids that strongly resembles the Mary Poppins song Feed the Birds. What do you think? Would this bird-feeding old woman be offended at being compared to Barney Gumble? 2021's Treehouse of Horror special featured a clear spoof of Disney's Bambi. However, we get another instance of animators going the extra mile to land the parody. This scene where Barty, see what you did there, finds his mom is almost identical, and the appearance of Bambi's dad is the same as well, except with a slightly different ending. And the animators just generally get super granular with the details of their Disney send-ups, including Devil Flanders looking just like Chernabog, the demon from Fantasia, I had to look the name up, don't worry, a fish-faced Homer reacting just like Pinocchio when he gets donkey ears, and Phil Hartman's Lionel Hutz combing his hair with a fork. Speaking of animation references, one of the clearest might be Steamboat Itchy, which popped up in multiple Simpsons episodes as a parody of Steamboat Willie. But did you know that Steamboat Willie was actually a parody itself? Yes, the 1928 Mickey Mouse film was a send-up of Steamboat Bill Jr., film from silent movie star Buster Keaton. So, next time you see a Disney parody, remember, they started it. Hey, speaking of Steamboat Itchy, the cartoon within a cartoon, plays an important part in a plot about the true creator of Itchy and Scratchy. In the season 7 episode, it's revealed that Roger Myers, the Simpsons version of Walt Disney, stole the character from animator Chester J. Lampwick. This is a clear reference to Ub Iwerks, the trailblazing animator and Disney's partner in the creation of Mickey Mouse, who many say didn't get the credit he deserves. It's true what they say, isn't it? Behind every American genius is an underappreciated co-conspirator with an interesting name. Everybody says that. So staying in the classic animation era, when Barney Gumble is terrorized by a hallucinogenic monster, he quickly guzzles a duff and is aided by a pink elephant, which sets in stone the logic put forth in Dumbo the Flying Elephant, that drinking calls the aid of holographic pink elephants. Kids, it is important to remember this information for the test. It is half your grade. Next, a dreaming Homer finds a magic lamp, rubs it, and the genie from Aladdin comes out. Well, of course, that's obvious. But you might not know that Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer, actually voiced the genie in The Return of Jafar, the Aladdin animated series, and the Kingdom Hearts series. I'm sure his taxes got a lot easier after the merger. Good for him. Good for Dan. Speaking of, Disney's first family have put on many Disney couch gags, especially as the IP continues to mount. This one referencing Disney animation with Maggie as Minnie, Lisa as Cinderella, Marge as Snow White, Homer as Baloo, and Bart as Fantasia Mickey, was actually created by Disney animator Eric Goldberg, who is known for creating the Genie and other iconic Disney animated characters. Can't you see it in the style? I think that's so cool. Even Disney's litigation practices weren't safe from Simpsons scorn, as when Principal Skinner calls the school carnival the happiest place on earth, he's rebuked by a Disney lawyer. This, of course, is a nod to Disney's long and litigious history when it comes to copyright law. But you might not know that the Mouse's lawyers twice got the US government to change the intellectual property laws to keep Mickey out of the public domain. He's due to go into the public domain in 2024, so keep your eyes peeled for lawyers with Mickey Mouse ears creeping around Capitol Hill. In the 4th season, Selma takes the kids to Duff Gardens. This is the episode where they ride a Duff-themed Small World parody ride. And the fictional theme park takes a direct swipe at Snow White's diminutive friends with beer-themed versions of the iconic dwarves. The fun part? You can actually go see those mascots in person, but not at a Disney theme park. At Universal Studios. How's that for brand synergy, huh? How about it? When's Disney gonna buy Universal? The Disney theme park parodies roll on with Itchy and Scratchy Land, a place the family returns to several times through the series. The whole park is a spoof of Disneyland down to the cutting-edge animatronics. This episode actually ends with the robots going haywire and killing everyone, only to be stopped with simple flash photography. A nod to Disney's long history of impressive animatronics that do inevitably break down from time to time. When Homer thinks he's 10 and Bart takes him to Itchy and Scratchy Land, they ride a parody of the Disney ride soaring down to seeing the legs of the person above you. And that's not all. This episode was written by Judd Apatow, who is of course famous for creating man-child characters, and here literally does that with Homer, but he wrote it 25 years before the episode aired. So that job that said they would keep your resume on file, they might be telling the truth. Maybe. At yet a third Disneyland parody location, literally called Disneyland, The Simpsons see a politically correct version of Pirates of the Caribbean, referencing the real-life removal of 2 scenes from the Disneyland ride, one of drunk pirates chasing women and another showing an auction of tied-up women. It's Probably a good move. In the same episode, Lisa notes that Disney got the rights to Cosmic Wars, a Star Wars parody, as you might guess, you little genius you, and immediately folded it into their rides, including the Country Stormtrooper Jamboree, Jim Jam Bonk's Wild Ride, and Jabba the Tiki Hut. This, of course, is a direct reference to Disney rides getting Star Wars makeovers after the big acquisition in 2012. And hey, speaking of Star Wars, let's get some more Star Wars references in here. It cost Disney $4 billion. It's the least we can do. The show used Cosmic Wars from time to time when it really wanted to go in at Lucasfilm because America's parody laws dictate it, dang it. And while The Simpsons can now freely use Star Wars thanks to being under the same cozy IP umbrella, they used to have a lot of fun with the send-up, even imitating the 1978 Star Wars Holiday Special with a Cosmic Wars version. If you haven't watched the real Star Wars Holiday Special, just when you do, make sure you block off the rest of your day for recovery, because it will affect you. And in an episode where Star Wars exists, I guess, Homer saves Star Wars actor Mark Hamill from a crowd of angry Comic-Con attendees. A clear reference to the rabid fan base of properties like Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, and The Simpsons. I mean, these people are unhinged, even devoting hundreds of hours to making internet videos that feel oh god. When Bart hits it big in animation, because this is The Simpsons, and of course he did, the family meets the creators of Mixar on a Hollywood red carpet. But instead of this Pixar parody crew being as jovial as their CG cartoons, the various characters and collaborators are pretty nasty. This is a pretty direct reference to Pixar's reportedly uber-toxic work environment, which culminated in the removal of longtime head John Lasseter. And the show parodied the MCU pretty directly in the season 31 episode, which you'll note is after Disney acquired Fox in 2019, but the show still chose to do spoof characters, including Chinos, because, you know, look at his chins. But the show's producers did manage to insert some direct Marvel references, including Kevin Feige voicing the character of Chinos, as well as longtime MCU directors Joe and Anthony Russo providing voice cameos. That's fun. Chinos. Speaking of Trixie Feige, in this season 29 episode, The Simpsons attended an MCU-type superhero film. After, the kids won't let the family leave the theater until they see all the many mid- and post-credit sequences, all of the MCU. Lots of fun references here, but my personal favorite is the credit for Hawkeye's action expert, listed as none needed, a reference to Hawkeye's often tamer action work than some of his more famous avenging counterparts. Sorry, Jeremy. And you might have missed this last Easter egg if you're not one to stay around for those credits. Beginning with 2020's A Playdate with Destiny, the Simpsons shorts on Disney Plus all have a modified Gracie Films logo, replacing one of the audience members with Mickey Mouse.
Maggie Simpson!
Welcome back to ScreenRant. Today we're counting down the 10 most rewatchable Simpsons episodes that never get old.
Remember, whatever happens, you have a mother, and she's truly proud of you.
Mother Simpson. In this heartfelt gem, Homer reunites with his long-lost mother, Mona. She left when he was just a kid, and now she's back. Homer's joy is infectious as he tries to make up for lost time. The episode ends with one of the most poignant images in the show's history, as Homer looks up at a starry sky, saying goodbye to his childhood once and for all.
Don't worry, Homer. You'll always be a part of me.
When Springfield legalizes gambling, Mr. Burns opens a casino, and chaos ensues. But it's the Simpson family's struggle without Marge that steals the show.
Art, I don't want to alarm you, but there may be a boogeyman or boogeymen in the house!
Homer's inept parenting skills lead to a house in disrepair, and we can't help but laugh at the absurdity. You only move twice. When Homer lands a new job at Globex Corporation, he discovers that his new boss is a supervillain. But here's the twist. Scorpio is the best boss ever. Every one of his lines is gold.
My goodness, what an idea. Why didn't I think of that? Hammocks!
Homer at the bat. When Mr. Burns makes a bet on his company's upcoming softball game against a rival's nuclear power plant, he stacks the roster with players including Wade Boggs and Jose Canseco. 22 short films about Springfield. This episode gave the writers the freedom to concoct bizarre situations that have nothing to do with the Simpson family. Each segment is like a miniature episode. Bart the Murderer has many of the hallmarks of classic gangster movies, but it's surprisingly original and compelling. The emotional core of the story is about Bart's hubris and the way he learns his lesson. The hilarious gangster parody and the farcical court case are just the icing on the cake. The Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie Show. This episode shows the writers of The Simpsons predicting the show's downfall and questioning how long they can keep the good times rolling. Given that it aired toward the end of the golden age of The Simpsons, the episode has taken on a meta position as the harbinger of the show's decline.
What else is on?
Treehouse of Horror 5 is arguably the best Halloween episode, and it can be re-watched every October without losing any of its charm, including many references like the parody of the Shining film. Marge Be Not Proud. After Bart is caught shoplifting the latest video game, Marge is at a complete loss. Bart realizes that disappointing his mother is worse than any punishment she could dish out. He makes amends with a genuine display of humility and selflessness in the warm and fuzzy finale of The Simpsons' best Christmas episode, Who Shot Mr. Burns? The fantastic two-parter paints a portrait of Springfield's most diabolical villain, all while spinning a genuinely captivating mystery plot. There you have it, folks. Do you agree with our list? Tell us in the comments below. See you next time here on ScreenRant.
I show you something very special if you promise to put your grubby little hand behind your back and keep them there.
Now, regardless of when you think it stopped being cool, The Simpsons is the background noise of pop culture, enough that we can take a third dive into its secrets, Easter eggs, and references. Now, The Simpsons sends up pop culture, so it's only natural that pop culture would make its way into the show in the form of cameos. Most of them are credited as part of the draw for the episode, but some cameos are poorly kept secrets.
Whatever.
Now, there are a lot of fans of The Simpsons, including some famous ones. Now, one of the most famous people ever is included in that list, as the king of pop, Michael Jackson, was a big fan of the show. In the hopes of giving Bart Simpson a #1 hit, he wrote Do the Bartman and choreographed the actual dance. Now, he also asked to be on the show itself, though when the time came, he was not actually credited as Michael Jackson, but instead John J. Smith.
Next question is why?
Now, the episode, which featured Homer befriending someone who thinks they're Michael Jackson, who clearly is not, also includes a part where the fake Jackson, being voiced by the real Jackson, helps Bart write a birthday song for his sister Lisa that was sung by a different fake Jackson, Kip Lennon. Part of the reason was a joke Michael was playing on his brothers to see if an impersonator could fool them.
I think it would be wiser to keep quiet about this for now.
Another early guest voice didn't have his name credited simply because it hadn't become the juggernaut that it is today. So, when Dustin Hoffman did the voice of Mr. Bergstrom, the first teacher to foster Lisa's brilliance in the episode Lisa's Substitute, instead, Hoffman was credited as Sam Ettick.
Very good.
A nod to both Hoffman and Mr. Bergstrom being Jewish. Now, not every celebrity appearance is voiced by the celebrity themselves, especially when they're being sent up for something.
Well, duh.
When the classic rock band The Who made an appearance on The Simpsons in the episode A Tale of Two Springfields, Pete Townsend wasn't available to record his line, so they got the next best thing: Pete Townsend's brother, Paul Townsend. Former Attorney General Janet Reno has made a few appearances on The Simpsons, but advancing Parkinson's made recording longer lines more difficult. So, for her last appearance in the episode Dark Knight Court, Janet Reno's sister, Maggie Reno Herchala, filled in.
Are you wearing hard sole shoes on this gym floor?
No, ma'am.
Thanks to the magic of mergers and Disney absorbing everything in sight, both The Simpsons and Marvel Comics are under the roof of the House of the Mouse.
I'm the mascot of an evil corporation.
Long before that, however, they were already sharing space in the pages of Marvel's New Warriors number 27. New Warrior Speedball finds himself in Springdale, Connecticut, investigating damage that had been happening in the town. When he gets there, he's promptly accused of causing it, forcing him to flee the police into the home of a very familiar-looking family. Now, when The Simpsons was just starting, the animated adventures of The Real Ghostbusters was finishing its run. The Simpsons had only been on for a year when the Ghostbusters episode Guess What's Coming to Dinner had a very Simpsons-looking ghost family take over the Ghostbuster firehouse while the Ghostbusters were away. In a show like The Simpsons, where the characters don't age and parody and comedy are the driving force, one wouldn't expect there to be much continuity. Except there is. For instance, when a writer is fired from the Itchy and Scratchy show, in a future episode with a scene at the unemployment office, that writer is waiting in line for his unemployment check. All the way back to episode 22 of season 2, Mr. Burns gives Bart a giant ceremonial head as a belated thanks for Bart providing a life-saving blood transfusion, much to Homer's disappointment. the head keeps showing up in The Simpsons' basement dozens of seasons later. When Homer's pin pals make their run for the championship, one of the teams they encounter is the Homewreckers, made up entirely of characters who have either tried to seduce Homer or Marge. The pin pal shirts make their way around Springfield as well, with a character voiced by John Waters picking up one for its kitsch value. When Homer puts his foot down and grounds Bart from seeing the Itchy and Scratchy movie, the motivation to stand by his guns is that if he is given discipline and direction, Bart could become a Supreme Court judge. Now, The Simpsons have glanced into the future a few times since, mostly with the young adult Bart being the person that you would expect him to be, but Bart's eventual appointment to the highest court in the land remains canon. Now, one of the realities of being an actor is that you don't always end up getting the role that you're out for. That is certainly true of the now iconic voice cast of The Simpsons.
I gotta go, my damn wiener kids are listening.
We are not wieners.
Yeardley Smith's unique voice has been lent to what Flanders once called the answer to the question no one asked Lisa Simpson. But that's not the role she tried out for. She had originally read for Bart, but her voice was too much like a girl's. She took it in stride because she hadn't considered doing voice work at the time. Now, similarly, Nancy Cartwright had intended to read for Lisa, but liked Bart better, so she gave that a go and Groening hired her on the spot. Celebrities and public figures aren't the only ones to make appearances in the show. Creator Matt Groening has made a number of appearances in the show that made him a household name. He's been at a comic book convention or being banned by Comic Book Guy. Now, there is another way that Groening has appeared in many episodes right under everyone's nose. Part of Maggie Simpson's suckling on her pacifier sound comes from Groening. Producer Sam Simon gets a parody appearance in The Simpsons' 138th episode Spectacular, where Groening was portrayed as a surly bald man with an eye patch. Simon was depicted like Howard Hughes when the inventor businessman became a recluse who wasn't clipping his nails. When The Simpsons became a hit, it might have been new for some of the people involved. But for James L. Brooks, it was just one of many. His career stretched back to The Mary Tyler Moore Show and My Mother the Car, and included an Oscar for Terms of Endearment, which he wrote, produced, and directed. And that's just part of his career of hits. So, when Brooks made a cameo in the show, he appeared like Mr. Moneybags from the Monopoly game. When The Simpsons first aired, the lead singer of Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman, had just found a new career thanks to finding himself scoring the movies of Tim Burton. Groening asked him for a classic theme that would go on to become one of Elfman's most recognizable themes. The opening credits include a nod to the composer, with a business named after the composer.
Anybody see it?
Oh, over here.
If The Simpsons had a golden age, it might be down to one writer, John Swartzwelder. But if you don't recognize the name the way you would former writers like Dana Gould or Conan O'Brien, it's by design, as Swartzwelder is notoriously a recluse, refusing to even do commentary tracks for the show.
All right, leeches, I want you to see what a good writer looks like.
He has, however, shown up on the show. In the episode Hurricane Ned, the actor is a patient at a mental health facility, and when people gather outside to celebrate Flanders' release, there's one person in the crowd holding a sign calling to free John Swartzwelder. There is a surprising amount of very complicated math portrayed in The Simpsons. One of those is Fermat's last theorem, which suggests that there is no three numbers that will satisfy the equation x to the power of n plus y to the power of n equals z to the power of n. I don't actually know what that means. It's been a long time since I've been in school, but according to people who do, when Homer writes the theorem on the chalkboard in the episode The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, he gets remarkably close to actually solving the problem, one that wasn't actually solved in 1995, over 300 years after it was first proposed. The same episode contains a formula predicting the weight of the Higgs boson particle, which turned out to be wrong, but they got close when it was finally discovered in 2012. Anything popular enough will eventually have someone making things from the show or movie for them to have.
Bort? Oh, come on, Bort?
When Homer finds out that he has a successful half-brother that owns a car company, Homer promptly tanks that company by designing for him a car so bad and so expensive that it closes the company after just the prototype. So, for the tongue-in-cheek junk car racing series 24 Hours of Le Mans, a group of superfans took a BMW that had already been made up like Christine and a porcupine as a nod to an off-color joke about BMW drivers, and created a real-world Homer.
I'm ruined!
In 1997, Fox teamed up with a developer in Nevada to build an exact replica of 742 Evergreen Terrace, the Simpsons' iconic home, and to give it away to one lucky fan. Turns out, the winner wasn't into having the house located 16 miles outside of Las Vegas, opting instead for the cash alternative. Some of the most iconic characters in Springfield don't seem to have names, so much as a brief description, like a comic book guy or Bumblebee Man. Except that some of these characters actually do have a name, it's just that no one knows it or bothers to use it. Comic book guy is actually Jeffrey Albertson. Bumblebee Man, Springfield's Spanish-language TV star, is in fact Pedro Chespirito. The squeaky-voiced, pimply-faced teen is actually named Jeremy Friedman. Crazy Cat Lady was once a successful lawyer named Eleanor Abernathy. There is one cameo that's not like the others. During the Christmas episode The Fight Before Christmas, singer Katy Perry became the only person to do a live-action cameo on The Simpsons. The episode is an anthology of Christmas stories from the family members, with Maggie imagining the family as Muppet-style puppets.
What the hell was that?
The appearance itself was a meta-reference to Perry herself, who had appeared on Sesame Street with Elmo, only to have that segment withdrawn for being too sexy.
Hey, yay, 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 yay.
Viewers of The Simpsons over the course of several seasons would get glimpses of Rainier Wolfcastle's signature character McBain. While seemingly random, it turns out that if you string all those scenes together, you get the highlights of a McBain movie. But McBain wasn't the only one who was bound for a life of their own. Actor Troy McClure, who you might remember from such films as Dial M for Murderousness, Sorry, Wrong Closet, and Today We Kill, Tomorrow We Die, almost ended up actually being in a film as a live-action character. Phil Hartman, who voiced Troy McClure, had been negotiating to buy the rights to the character for a live-action adaptation. Unfortunately, the actor was killed before that could become a reality, and we're left to wonder what might have been.
How about that? I looked something up.
But had Troy McClure broken free of The Simpsons into other media, he wouldn't have been the first. In 2009, in an attempt to get readers in their 20s, as opposed to their regular reader demographic in their mid-30s, men's magazine Playboy featured Marge Simpson on the cover, as well as a 3-page spread, making her the only fictional character to appear on the cover of the long-running magazine. Not everything cultural translates when the show is translated, especially when the show appears in less permissive societies. Like, the Egyptian dub of The Simpsons has Homer really enjoying soda since drinking alcohol is a taboo.
Why must you turn my office into a house of lies?
The French actors who dubbed Marge and Homer met on the job when they auditioned for the roles. 12 years later, the pair got married. Serving up a single term from 1988 to 1992, George H.W. Bush was the president as The Simpsons premiered and started capturing the nation's imagination. It's safe to say that he was not a fan. As a result, The Simpsons took a few stabs at the president, culminating in an episode where the former president moves into Springfield and gets into a rivalry with Homer.
The boy is named Bart. I don't know the name of the man. Bar? What's the name of the man?
Don't tell writer John Swartzwelder or the writing staff of The Simpsons what they can't do. Fox was looking to soften its image a bit and wanted to curb the amount of violence on their shows, suggesting that The Simpsons stop adding the comically violent Itchy and Scratchy segments of The Simpsons. In response, they sent an entire episode revolving around Itchy and Scratchy, including a violent Disneyland-style Itchy and Scratchy land, making it impossible to cut Itchy and Scratchy out. They also threatened to tattle to the press if Fox pulled the episode. Eventually, the writers won out, and Itchy and Scratchy remains a part of the series. Another famous episode sees Moe taking credit for a cocktail created by Homer to survive a night with Marge's sisters.
My name is Moe and I invented it. That's why it's called a Flaming Moe.
The episode was long thought to be an allegory of the relationship between producer Sam Simon and Matt Groening over who deserved credit for The Simpsons' success. something Sam Simon tacitly confirmed years later. Obviously, it's not a new concept that names have meanings, and The Simpsons have leaned into that. To populate Springfield, initially Groening went with what he knew. His family provided the names of the titular Simpsons, with Bart replacing Matt. For the surrounding cast, he just named them after what was around him. Portland. Many of the names come from street or place names around Portland. Milk Toast Millhouse has some less than milquetoast namesakes. Millhouse appears to be the middle name of Richard Nixon. Millhouse's middle name is even more severe. It's Mussolini. His grandmother on his mom's side suggests that's because she had a romance with the fascist leader of Italy.
That's terrible!
Aliens Kang and Kodos get their names from a decidedly alien source, Star Trek. Kang is a Klingon from the original series, and Kodos comes from Kodos the Executioner, a human villain from the original series. Some names are just a matter of convenience. For the longest time, Moe didn't need a last name, but for the Who Shot Mr. Burns cliffhanger, he was given the first S last name they could find so that his initials would be MS, making him a suspect.
Oh, what the? An enjoyment buzzer.
Homer, Marge, Lisa, Bart, and Maggie are joined by dozens of recurring side characters from across The Simpsons' 33 seasons. Today, ScreenRant ranks the 5 best Simpsons side characters of all time.
As hard as it is to believe, some people don't care for me neither.
No, I won't accept that.
The godfather of terrible advice and proprietor of Moe's Tavern, Moe first became a fan favorite through Bart's prank calls to the bar, a running gag that has evolved greatly over the years. Apart from being gullible, Moe consistently takes advantage of his bar's regulars and is depicted as a constant loser. Yet, despite all this, the underdog's lovable streak is cemented by his heart of gold, which can't really be said for the next side character.
Why me?
Appropriately depicted as a clown beloved by children, Krusty is the classic, out-of-touch rich celebrity who makes questionable decisions. But what the character lacks in subtlety, Krusty more than makes up for in expert scene chewing. From how he smokes around kids, as he gives orders to his overworked monkey assistant, Mr. Teeny, to how his abusive behavior turns Sideshow Bob into a murderer, Krusty might be the worst role model for children on the show. And the fact that he's Bart's biggest hero is one of the most overlooked dark jokes on The Simpsons. However, even Krusty's deeds pale in comparison to the next character.
I say we invest that money back in the nuclear plant. I like the way Snrub thinks.
The undisputed main antagonist of The Simpsons, Mr. Burns owns not just the Springfield nuclear power plant, but arguably also the very lives of his employees. When characters like Moe and Krusty fail to depict the worst of humanity, it's Mr. Burns' time to shine. Combined with his massive wealth and failing health, Montgomery Burns' cavalier sense of morality has led to some of the most imaginative Simpsons episodes ever. But when it comes to being the butt of the joke authority figure, there's one character who's better than Burns.
You're right, Sergeant.
Well, I don't see any way out of this.
Seymour isn't just the straight foil to Bart's chaos, he's also a relatable middle-aged bachelor stuck in middle management. From his tragic romance with fellow fan favorite Edna Krabappel to his evolving relationship with Bart and the Simpsons family, Seymour has grown a lot for a man-child approaching his 50s. However, there is one other side character who is more of a walking joke than even the lovably clueless Principal Skinner.
I would have gotten away with it too if it went for these meddling kids.
Take him away, boys.
Ever since Bart stopped Sideshow Bob from taking revenge on his abusive former boss, Krusty, Bob has always had it in for Bart. Sideshow Bob has changed a lot since then, and has even saved Bart's life several times. Nonetheless, his constant allusions to murder, hilariously wrapped in his worldly sophistication, remain among the best running gags in the show. Though he doesn't have as many appearances as the others on this list, Sideshow Bob is arguably the greatest side character in The Simpsons. Thanks for watching ScreenRant, and stay tuned for more movie news.